This excerpt from the public television program, The Piano Guy, is brought to you by the Roland Corporation. I'm excited to be able to work through a tune that we get a lot of response on in emails and letters, and it's a tune that I'm sure you'll recognize immediately. It's Your Song by Elton John. With me to work through the tune today is my good friend David Benoit. Hi, David.
Scott, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. And I'm excited you're here to share your knowledge on this tune, because I know that this is a tune you used on an album, right? This was on the Heroes album?
Exactly.
Well, tell me a little bit what prompted you to use this tune on an album.
Well, a lot of people that hear me play tend to think of my influences like Ramsey Lewis, Dave Brubeck, Bill Evans, a lot of the jazz greats.
Sure.
But they don't expect when they hear about my influences being Elton John or The Doors. But of course,
Right.
I grew up in the 60s.
Right.
And Your Song came out, I think I was in my senior year of high school, probably 1971.
Right.
And it was just a huge hit. And everyone learned that piano intro, and ironically, I didn't use it for my Heroes record because I wanted to take a little different approach. But
Sure.
it was a real popular song, and just ever since then, I've always wanted to do a recording of it.
Neat. Well, I always laugh when we think about high school. I don't think there's ever been a male piano player that I've ever spoken to in my life that doesn't say, oh, those are great tunes. You could sing it for a girlfriend or whatever. It's good romance. It's like, it's the old chasing chicks thing. That's always the start of all the piano playing stuff.
It worked with me,
it's a truism amongst all piano players that way. Well, to get into this a little bit, let's play a few measures of the tune, just so the viewers can kind of get this tune in their ear. If you want to just play a couple measures, we'll get started. Yeah, great. That is so identifiable when you do it. Now, that immediately made me think, because, of course, you hear it and you're thinking the recording that you've heard, then you're thinking Elton John singing it. How do you approach, share with me any of your thoughts on the difference between kind of, accompanying either yourself singing or someone else versus playing solo style like you do all the time. You don't sing on your albums, you're always playing solo style.
Right.
Any thoughts on how you kind of interpret things differently that way?
Well, one thing, and this goes for a lot of even the songs that I write, if I'm accompanying somebody, I might be playing down in this register. But if I'm trying to get more of a melodic approach, I try to make the piano maybe sometimes take it up an octave so that the melody sings a little more. Like, in fact, on the record, I started up in this range.
Okay. Yeah. We talk about that a lot. Sometimes we've had people describe it as saying, the melody up higher, it's kind of like why the sopranos always get the melody in the choir. It just kind of stands up above it all and gets out of the way. So when you are playing kind of an accompaniment style or accompanying another instrumentalist, you are just kind of staying out of their way, if that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, and trying to support them, give them the support in the register that's appropriate.
Cool. Now let's talk about the actual arrangement that you did. When you approach doing it, I think it's tough. A lot of admiration for your Heroes album because of all these tunes that you did. That, boy, everyone really knows these tunes based on one single recording of it. Yet you've got to find an interesting arrangement of it that still kind of speaks, that you did something different. How did you do that with this tune?
Well, the first thing I did is I went straight to the melody. I actually skipped that very famous intro.
That signature intro,
The signature intro, I thought just get right to the melody. I did start it up in the higher register, which is kind of unusual. I usually start down here and work my way up. And on the recording, the first thing you hear is, and I just wanted to get kind of an intimacy with it. And then, so I played it, I think I went down here for the second verse. Then for the piano solo, when I improvised, rather than staying in E flat, I took a little left turn and went, from the B flat sus, and then I went to the key of C. And it just kind of opened it up. It gave it this whole other little dimension.
So it just kind of modulated from. So this thing is an E flat when you started. That's where you're playing it and where you started it. Okay.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is when you go to the 5 chord, and then it sounds like you're modulating up a whole step.
That makes sense.
So it gives it this lift when in fact you're actually going from E flat down
just to make sure
C.
we're not losing anybody there. What you meant by 5, I can do that on E flat.
Sure.
If you're counting up 5, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 5 chord is in B flat, and then from there you just jumped up to a C.
I went to here.
Yeah, that's kind of a breath of fresh air for your ears, I think.
Yeah,
to do
exactly.
That.
Yeah.
Do this for me. Something I admire in your playing, and I've always liked it when I hear your melodic playing, is a lot of, I affectionately call it noodling. Do-do-do-do-do, ways to kind of interpret rather than just playing the single notes by themselves. That's something we get a lot of response from viewers saying, give us some really, pragmatic ways to accomplish that. And anything you can share with me, just thinking about single, melody note playing, how you can do that and do some little, noodling around there to make that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that does, it is kind of part of my signature, I guess you would say, sound. And it's so much of it is just kind of intuitive, and it's probably already I've embellished it a bit there. Like one thing I did, you did one of those Dahlia, what I call a Dahlia.
Slow that down for me. Would you very slow? Really slowly for the viewers. So do ba da.
So da 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 da. I think he goes right. I'm not exactly sure the exact melody, but what I do is.
So you're just kind of swimming around what you're really trying to nail down.
I start with the note, and then D, and then I go ba da da da. I call it a Dahlia da.
Yeah, Dahlia da. And it's funny you say that. That makes me laugh when you talk about that, because we talk a lot about saying, look, you've got to try to play the way you sing. Because on a piano, you can't bend a note. You're not a trombone, you can't do it. And the only way you're going to accomplish that is not by reading. Because if you ever tried to read, I always laugh. I'd love to see some absolutely perfectly engraved version of one of your solos. It would be insanely difficult to read. All those little do.
Yeah.
Well, no one needs to read that. What you really need to do is hear it and kind of imitate the way you would sing it. But it's sometimes people say, boy, I just need a little shove off the cliff to get started. So maybe that's a good one. Just boo ba do ba do. Okay.
Yeah, just a little. It's very easy too. I'm just like in first position kind of.
Yeah. Well, move on a few measures here. I want to catch a few more of those as you're doing them.
There's another one. Instead of da da da, I just do the little grace note before. Da da da. It's like a little F to G. Da 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 da. Maybe I do that again.
Yeah.
I do those a lot. I mean, there's probably more of those than I've ever imagined.
See, leave it to me. Now you're going to get conscious about it. Now you start thinking it'll ruin your whole flying from now on, right?
Like the centipede that had to learn how to walk again. Which leg do you move first?
That's exactly right. But I think that the intent there is to try to clarify. I think for our viewers, sometimes we get a lot of feedback saying, "Gosh, I just see somebody's hands and they're moving all over, and I just can't comprehend where that melody is inside there." And I think instead of thinking, oh, we've memorized some incredibly technical thing and read it like crazy, the reality is you're just kind of noodling around this set melody that you would normally find in the lead sheet. But it's your job as a pianist to not play that lead sheet exactly as it's written, but to interpret it.
That's right.
And start getting into that.
Exactly right.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, listen. If you don't mind, I'd love to hear you play the whole tune for us. This is David Benoit playing your song.
All right. Here we go.
Thanks, David. That was
All
great.
right, pleasure.
Really appreciate the help. This excerpt from the public television program, The Piano Guy, has been brought to you by the Roland Corporation, international manufacturer of the finest keyboards, organs, and digital pianos. To find out more, log on to RolandUS.com.